Hello, this video is on the subject of explosives. This video will cover the material for the explosives part of the West Virginia Mine Foreman test. The format for the video is question and answer. This video will also reference the question and answer to the West Virginia Office of Miners Health Safety and Training Mine Foreman Study Guide, and that's the 2019 edition. And these questions are in the explosives part of the study guide. So the explosives part is a lot of these questions would be referenced to when we used conventional mining and shooting coal. So I'll give you a little history lesson here, probably back into the 50s and 60s and maybe early 70s and maybe even later. Some mines used conventional mining, and you had a cutting machine that has the picture here that would undercut the coal. And the reason you undercut the coal was when the explosives went off, for the coal to break, it has to have somewhere to go to. So you undercut it so the coal could break and go downward and then out from the face. So it kind of gives it two free faces to expand to. So this would have been the cutting machine. After you would cut it, and the cuts were usually about 9 foot deep, then you would bring a drill in like this one in this picture that would drill a hole approximately 8 feet deep, and then you would shoot that. And here's the picture of the drill. Here's another picture of a drill. And the drill would drill a pattern much like this. And we always, when we're shooting coal, we use millisecond delay detonators. So these holes that are shown as with the number 1 would shoot first. And then that material would shoot out towards from the face out into the mine. And then the number 2 shots would shoot. And that material would kind of blow into the void left by the number 1 shots. And then the number 3 shots would go last, and they would kind of go into the void of number 2. And these are millisecond delays. So it would a millisecond is a thousandth of a second. So these are millisecond delays. It would be really quick. But this is kind of the pattern and the method they would use to shoot that. Here's a picture of a certified shot fire. To handle explosives at a mine, you need to be a certified shot fire. The boxes of explosives and caps that have not been opened, anyone can transport those or handle them. But when the boxes are opened, to put a cap into a stick of powder and to put it in a hole, you're supposed to be a certified shot fire. So this guy is a shot fire, and he's loading a hole. After you shoot the material, this is just a picture of a loading machine, and that would go in and load the coal into a shuttle car. But a lot of conventional mining sections just use scoops to scoop the coal up and take it to the feeder. So that was a history lesson. That's conventional mining. Don't do that anymore, even though it would still be legal. If you could get permits and had a cutting machine and a drill, you could do conventional mining in West Virginia. So get to the questions. Question number 1, how shall surface magazines be constructed? And the answer is of incombustible material, be reasonably bulletproof, and have no metal or sparking material exposed inside of the magazine. So the surface magazine is where we would store explosives at the surface area of an underground mine. And most of them are just, now that I see, I'll just call them a metal cube. They're made out of metal. They're not very big typically. Really wouldn't know the dimensions, but not very big. Wouldn't be 20 by 20 by 6 foot high. I think would be a very big one. They're typically pretty small because we don't have a lot of explosives at a mine now. And no metal or sparking material exposed inside the magazine, and I think it will be typically lined with wood. Number 2, what type of doors are on surface magazines? And the answer is doors constructed of at least 1/4 inch steel plate lined with 2-inch thickness of wood or the equivalent. And I think the entire box now that we would have at the surface area of the magazine would be a 1/4 inch steel plate, and I think the whole thing would be lined with 2-inch thickness of wood or the equivalent. And this question comes more from maybe in the 60s when we had a large mine that used conventional mining, we would have a big powder magazine, a big building. Probably would be cinder block, concrete floor, concrete roof, but the door on that would be 1/4-inch steel plate lined with 2-inch thickness of wood or the equivalent. Number 3, how is ventilation provided at a surface magazine? And the answer is with properly screened ventilators. And I think what this means is that the metal box that we have probably has some holes cut in it. And I could just imagine welding some expanded metal or something over it just to let some air naturally flow through the powder magazine to kind of keep it cool. 4, when a surface magazine is unattended, how can it be protected from authorized persons? And that's by being locked securely. So you can imagine that we have a lot of precautions, security issues with explosives now, and that would be locked securely. Number 5, if a surface magazines are illuminated electrically, what type of lights are used? And the answer is vapor-proof lights that are properly installed and wired. And people tell me a vapor-proof light is a light that emits very little heat, so there would not be much heat from this. Some people could say this would almost be considered a permissible light. So we don't want much heat in the powder magazine. And I have never seen a powder magazine that had lights. Number 6, powder magazines shall be located at what distance from mine openings? And the answer is 200 feet away from the mine opening unless the magazine is barricaded. And I have a picture here. So I have the black box is the mine opening. The red box is the powder magazine. So the distance between those two, it has to be at least 200 feet from the mine opening to the powder magazine unless barricaded. And the next picture will show a barricade. So the barricade could just be a mound of gravel or dirt, and that's at least 200 feet between the mine opening and the powder magazine unless barricaded. This one is barricaded, so if something happened, the powder magazine would blow up, and you didn't want it to, obviously. The force of the explosion would not reach the mine opening. It would be deflected away by the barricade. Number 7, what is not allowed around surface magazines? And the answer is rubbish or combustible material shall not be permitted within 25 feet of the surface magazine. And rubbish is not a term that we use a lot, but it's rubbish as waste material, refuse, or litter. And I've actually had a couple people in my classes when we talk about this question, they have said that they, when they first started working at the mine, they may be working for a contractor doing some stuff outside. And I had 2 people that have told me that they've actually had to mow the grass around powder magazines. We don't want anything that can burn to be within 25 feet of a surface magazine. And certainly grass, could, in the fall could dry out and die and, would easily burn, and that would be a problem. Number 8, what are the qualifications of a certified shot firer? And we have a long answer here, but the answer is any person having had at least 2 years of practical experience in coal mines who has a knowledge of ventilation, mine roof, and timbering, and who has demonstrated their knowledge of mine gases, the use of multi-gas detectors, and other approved detection devices by examination and certification given by the Director of Miner Self-Safety and Training. So to describe that big long answer is basically you have to have 2 years experience and you have to take a test. On that test, you have to demonstrate your ability to take a gas test. Now you have to take a 1-minute air reading and calculate the cubic feet per minute. You have to demonstrate your ability to wire up a shot properly and maybe even find a fault in that wiring. And you have to take a test, and I think the test is 50 questions. 9, define permissible explosives, and the answer is explosives that have passed certain tests conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Mines and the Mine Safety and Health Administration. And all explosives used in a mine must be permissible. So anything that's approved as permissible will be approved by the U.S. Bureau of Mines and or the Mine Safety and Health Administration. Question 10, what is the principal ingredient in permissible explosives? And the answer to that is ammonium nitrate. On a surface mine, we use ANFO, ANFO, which stands for ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. So ammonium nitrate is an explosive ingredient, and that's what we use in permissible explosives at an underground mine. 11, what are the characteristics of flame which determines the permissibility of explosive? And that's going to be a short flame of short duration. Question 12, what class of explosives liberates the smallest volume of poisonous gases? And the answer is a Class A explosive, and that's the only kind we use at a mine, is a Class A explosives for underground mining. And you also may hear in some mining classes a reference to high explosives, and that's what we use at an underground mine. They are considered high explosives, and they are Class A explosives, and they liberate the smallest volume of poisonous gases. Question 13, how can permissible explosives become deteriorated, or how can they become damaged? And the answer is by moisture, improper storage, or age. Question 14, to remain permissible explosives must be fired from and the answer is a permissible blasting unit. And I have a couple pictures here, just one of them I searched on the internet and found, and the other one that my pointer is the red and gray boxes here. That's kind of look like the ones I've used in a mine before. They were actually this color, but they are permissible. They're designed especially for detonating explosives underground. You cannot detonate explosives from scoop batteries or power center breakers or anything like that. You have to use a permissible detonator, and you should also make sure that the detonator is rated to supply enough power for the shot that you intend to shoot. So if you were shooting an overcast down and maybe had 100 holes, 100 caps that need to be detonated, you would need to make sure that your permissible blasting unit had the rating to supply enough energy to do that. 15, what is the minimum charge of permissible explosives that is permitted to be used for a hole 6 foot or more in depth? And the answer to that is 1 1/2 pounds. So if you have a hole 6 foot or more in depth, you have to use at least 1 1/2 pounds of explosives. Question 16, what's the maximum charge of permissible explosives that is permitted to be used for a hole 6 foot or more in depth? And that is 3 pounds. So the minimum is 1.5 pounds, the maximum is 3. And the way you know that, how you know how much you're putting in, a box of explosives will give you a total weight and also give you a number of sticks that's in the box. So you can just take the total weight divided by the number of sticks, and that will give you the pounds per stick. So that's how you can determine how much explosives you're putting in the hole. Question 17, to remain permissible, how much permissible explosives be stemmed or confined to a drill hole? And the answer is explosives must be properly confined in a hole with incombustible stemming material at least 24 inches in length, or 1/2 the length of the hole if the hole is less than 4 feet. And this is referred to stemming. So when we drill a hole, when we put explosives in it, we have to put some incombustible material in there so the explosives just don't blow back out the hole. It would be just like a shot being going back out the gun barrel, and we don't want it to do that. We want to put incombustible stemming material to keep it confined to the hole. So we have to have 24 inches in length as a minimum, but if the hole is less than 4 feet, you can have just half the length of the hole. So here's a picture. So up on top here, you can see my mouse pointer. This hole is more than 4 feet. We have the explosives, the red box here. So the stemming material, the brown color, we have to have at least 24 inches of stemming material. And on the lower picture, this hole is less than 4 feet. We have the explosives in it here in the back of the hole in the red box. And the stemming material just has to be at least half the length of the hole. So just remember that. But someone told me the question on the test, test will ask you how much stemming material is needed for a 4-foot hole, and the answer to that would be 24 inches. 18. What's the principal cause of explosive accidents when permissible explosives are used? And that the answer is carelessness or improper usage. So permissible explosives used in a coal mine are perfectly safe as long as they are used properly and carefully. Question 19. What poisonous gases are liberated by explosives when fired? And that is, the answer is carbon monoxide and oxides of nitrogen. And the principal poisonous gas would be carbon monoxide. So I think you need to remember that carbon monoxide is going to be in the mine after you detonate explosives. I had a guy in class one time that was a certified shot firer at a mine, and they done a lot of blasting of shooting overcast down, and he was always in charge of that. And he said typically when you shot an overcast down, there would be enough carbon monoxide to cause your multi-gas detector to alarm on carbon monoxide. So that would be 35 parts per million to 50 parts per million, depending on what his detector was set to alarm at. And that's fine, but you just shouldn't go back into that area. You should you should have adequate ventilation to carry that carbon monoxide away from that area before you enter it. Question 20, what are the dangers from burning explosives? And that's the answer is the dangers from burning explosives are fires, explosions, and dangerous gases. So if you have explosives burning, just the fact that you had a fire is a problem. Anytime you have a fire in a coal mine, it's a huge problem. These explosives could blow up when they catch on fire, and just the smoke coming from them could have dangerous gases in it. Question 21, what work is allowed in the face area while boreholes are being charged? And the answer is only work in connection with timbering and general safety. So when we're loading holes, when we're putting caps into sticks of powder, putting them in a hole, and then putting incombustible stemming material in the hole, we don't want any other thing going on in that area. It says here timbering and general safety. But really what you want to avoid is electricity. Electricity could make this shot go off prematurely. I would suggest that you don't even have a radio on. You probably got policies at your mine not to have radios, and we certainly want to keep electricity away from this area. Question 22, what amount of explosives can be stored underground in magazines? And the answer is no more than a 48-hour supply. So we can have powder magazines underground. Back when we done conventional mining, we would have had that all the time, and you could have a 48-hour supply. Most powder magazines that are underground are wooden boxes. Question 23, what time or distance must be maintained between a man trip and a powder trip? And the answer is not less than 5 minutes apart. So we have a man trip and we have a powder trip. We have two vehicles, one hauling men, one hauling powder. We want at least 5 minutes time between those trips. 24, what is the minimum distance must be maintained between roadway or power wire and underground powder magazines? And that's 15 feet, at least 15 feet. So we want to keep powder magazines 15 feet from a roadway just so we don't run over them. And we want to keep them 15 feet from underground power wires because power could cause the explosives to be detonated. Question 25, powder magazines or powder boxes must be kept at what distance from the face? And the answer is at least 100 feet from the faces and out of direct line of blast. So I have a picture here, and this would be a more of a question that would apply to conventional mining where we were blasting in the face area and we had a powder magazine on a section. But at that time they were required to be 100 feet from the faces. You see my little mouse pointer here. The red boxes are powder magazines. So typically they were in a crosscut, so they were out of line of blasting. and they had to be 15 feet from a roadway or power wires. Question 26 is, what is water permissible stemming material? And yes, it is. Water can be used. It's incombustible. And I've actually used water dummies before, and they were just a sleeve that you pumped water into, and you put them in the hole. You didn't have to tamp them, because when the explosion went off, it caused the water dummy to expand, and they worked well. They were just inconvenient because they were hard to keep them made up and keep water in them. Question 27, what type of shot shall not be fired in any mine unless you have a permit from the West Virginia Office of Miner Self Safety and Training? And the answer is adobe or mud capped or any other unconfined shot. So it is my opinion that any shot that's detonated in a coal mine has to be in a drilled hole, unless you use those special devices that are called sheath type explosives. Some people call them rock busters, but they're specially designed to be shot that way. But if you're using a stick of powder, it has to be in a drilled hole. 28, what is mud capped or adobe shot? And that is an unconfined shot. It's not confined in a hole. 29, how many kinds of explosives can be used in the same hole? And the answer to that is only one kind of explosive may be used in the same hole. Question 30, how are explosives confined in a drill hole? And the answer is with incombustible material. 31, what is proper stemming material? And the answer is incombustible material such as clay, sand, rock dust, or special devices such as water dummies. And all these are incombustible, just means they won't burn. And probably the most likely thing that we use in a mine is clay dummies. Probably everyone that's ever been around any shooting has seen clay dummies. Question 32, what type of tamping stick should be used? And the answer is a wooden tamping stick, something that's just non-sparking and non-conductor of electricity. Non-sparking would be the key. Question 33, when permissible explosives are fired, what would be considered a dangerous amount of methane? And the answer is 1% methane would be considered a dangerous amount of methane, and explosives should not be detonated. The methane should be reduced to less than 1% before the explosives are detonated. So we don't do anything in a mine with 1% or more of methane. If we're mining with a continuous miner, we're roof bolting, scooping a place, or getting ready to detonate explosives, we need to take gas tests. And if we have 1% or more, we stop what we're doing, we de-energize the power, and we ventilate it. So if you were getting ready to fire a shot in a mine, one of the last things you should do is take a gas test. And if it's 1% or more, you should not shoot that. You should ventilate it and reduce the methane. Question 34, in what direction is the maximum force of an explosion exerted? And the answer is equally in all directions, but it takes the direction of least resistance. So the force of the explosion is not directional, but it will take the direction of least resistance. So if you would put a stick of powder in a hole and didn't put stemming material, where would the force of the explosion go? It would go right back out the hole, because that's the easiest path. If we put the stemming material in it and detonate it, then the force goes in all directions. 35, where should people be when shots are fired? And the answer is out of the line of fire and around the corner. 36, when can a person go into the face after a shot has been fired? And the answer is not until the smoke is cleared away. And again, you should have adequate ventilation. We should have adequate velocity and adequate volume to carry away the smoke and carbon monoxide that could be in that. Question 37, what's the first thing to do when a misfire occurs? And the answer is disconnect from blasting unit and short circuit the wires by twisting them together. So if you do have a misfire, the very first thing to do to make it safe is disconnect from blasting unit, twist the wires together, which is shunting the wires. 38. In the event of a misfire, what should the shot firer do until a foreman arrives? And the answer is remain on guard at a safe distance and not allow anyone into the area. So when we have a misfire, we don't want to let anyone back into that area. 39. How long should a person wait before going into a place after a misfire? And the answer is a person should wait 5 minutes before going back into the place after a misfire. So if we have the misfire, we disconnect from blasting unit, short circuit the wires together, and wait at least 5 minutes before we go back into the place. We want to make sure there's no delay between when we try to detonate it and it goes off. So a 5-minute waiting period is a good safety factor. After that, it's probably going to be safe to go back in. Question 40, how shall a misfire be removed? And the answer is another hole may be drilled at least 24 inches away and fired, or by washing the stemming and charge from the borehole with water, or by inserting and firing a new primer after the stemming has been washed out. So we drill another hole at least 24 inches away and fire it. Now we could retrieve the misfired explosives and dispose of it properly, or we could just wash everything out of the hole with high pressure water, or we could just wash the stemming away. Maybe the clay dummies, we could just wash those out and then put another stick of powder with a cap in it and shoot that again, and the explosives that didn't go off the first time would probably go off the second time. 41, who shall supervise removal of a misfire? And the answer is a mine foreman or a certified person designated by the mine foreman. 42, what method should not be used to remove a misfire? And that's by drilling them out. So, obviously, you don't want to have a stick of powder and a cap in a hole that didn't go off, and you drill back into that. If you did, it's very likely that would go off and you would be injured. 43, who can fire a shot at a mine in West Virginia? And the answer is only certified shot firers shall be designated to fire shots. So again, there is a miner self-safety training certification of a certified shot firer, and that's the only people that can fire shots at a mine. Question 44, how is an electric blasting cap protected from stray currents? And that's by using a shunt. And I have a picture here. I have the red blasting cap. We have a long wires from those. Those wires could be 10 or 15 feet long, and they need to be shunted at the end. They come that way. When you get them, these wires will be twisted together, and they should remain that way until you're ready to wire them up to your shooting cable. 45, how's a shunt made? And the answer is a shunt is made by short-circuiting the ends of the leg wires. And, short-circuiting, to me, is just you twist the wires together. You actually do short-circuit them, but, a term that I use is we twist the ends together, and that's a shunt. 46, what's the minimum length of a shooting cable? And the minimum length of a shooting cable is 100 feet. New cable should be purchased 125 feet long. Someone told me there's 2 questions on the test, and one question is going to be what's the minimum length of a cable, and the minimum length of a shooting cable is 100 feet. And another question is going to be what's the length of a new cable, and that would be 125 feet. So what happens is you have a 125-foot cable, and you start using it, you start shooting, you'll shoot rock on it, you'll shoot coal on it, and the end of it starts to get damaged, so you start cutting pieces off of it. After you shoot, every time you should check the end of your shooting cable, make sure it's not been damaged, but it will be periodically. You'll start cutting pieces off of it, and when it gets down to less than 100 feet, you need to get a new cable. 47, how are shooting cables protected from straight currents? And that's by being shunted. And it's the same thing. So we have a shooting cable, it's at least 100 feet long. one end goes to the shot where we're going to wire it up. The other end goes to the permissible blasting unit, and both of those ends are shunted. And when we wire the end up to the shot, the end of the blasting unit has to be shunted so we can have no current flow. All electrical cables or wires that we're going to use in shooting are shunted or twisted together until we're ready to use them. It's very important. Question 48, why should shots not be fired from a trolley wire? And the answer is because the high voltages may form arcs, which will ignite gas or coal dust. Question 49, when can short interval detonators be used to shoot coal underground? And the answer is with written permission from the Director of Miner Cell Safety and Training. And that's what we use at a coal mine. We use short interval detonators to shoot coal with. And you just have to have permits. You have to have a permit from the Director of Miner Cell Safety and Training to use explosives underground. Question 50. When can millisecond delay detonators be used for blasting coal? And the answer is with written permission from the Director of Miner Cell Safety and Training. This is the same question, almost identical back to back. When we're using explosives underground, we have to have permits. You have to have permits with millisecond delay detonators. Question 51, how is the circuit tested when using millisecond delay detonators? And the answer is with the galvanometer. And I have a picture of one here, and it just reads continuity. So when I wire up a shot, and I'm going to apply electricity to it, to detonate it, I have to have a complete circuit. And the galvanometer checks to make sure you have a circuit. So when you're ready to fire the shot, everything's ready. One of the last things you're going to do is check and make sure you have continuity. If you do have continuity, when you put the wires on the permissible blasting unit and push the buttons, it should detonate. 52, what is the maximum millisecond delay between the first and last hole when using millisecond delay detonators? And the answer is the entire delay shall not exceed 500 milliseconds. So all these caps have a delay, and I'll have a little piece of paper on the wires that will tell you that delay. And from the first to last one, if you add up all the delays, it cannot exceed 500 milliseconds. 53, can instantaneous, regular, or zero delay detonators be fired in the same circuit as millisecond delay detonators? And the answer to that is no. We cannot intermix them. If we're using millisecond delay detonators, all of them have to be millisecond delay detonators. Question 54, when using millisecond delay detonators, the interval between adjacent rows of shots is, and the answer is a minimum of 25 milliseconds and a maximum of 100 milliseconds between the rows. So if you were shooting coal and you had 2 rows, you would have to have at least a 25 millisecond delay between the rows, but no more than 100 millisecond delay. Question 55, what is a sheath-typed explosive? And the answer is a sheath-typed of explosive is a Class A gel-type permissible explosive of Pacific design that when detonated in a methane air mixture or coal dust air mixture will not cause an ignition or an explosion. So the dead giveaway on this answer is Class A because that's the only thing we use at a mine. But this is what we would call, maybe some people call them rock busters, but this is an explosive that you can just lay on top of a rock and shoot it. They're, approximately, maybe 8 or 10 inches square, maybe 3 or 4 inches thick, and they have 1.5 pounds of explosives in the middle of them. And people, I think, who works on long walls may be familiar with these, but they are, again, specially designed to not be in a confined hole. Question 56, is a separate instantaneous detonator required to fire each sheathed explosive unit? And the answer to that is yes. 57. Can damaged or deteriorated sheath explosives be primed or used? The answer to that is no. Question 58. How many sheath explosives may be fired at one time? And the answer is no more than 3. Question 59. Can a sheath explosive unit be fired in contact with another sheath explosive unit? And the answer to that is no. They cannot be touching each other. Question 60. Who shall designate a certified shot fire to handle explosives? And the answer to that is mine management. I feel sure that question's on the test, and that's just in the regulations. And I think if we're going to do shooting at a mine, mine management says, you two guys are certified shot firers. You all are going to do the blasting on this shift, so we know who's doing it and who's in charge of it. But again, mine management will designate the certified shot fire to handle explosives. 61. When multiple shooting in bottom or top, the shooting must be done in, and the answer is shooting must be done in intake air except by permission from the Director of Miner Self-Safety and Training. So that's the end of this video. Thank you.